Thank you for tuning in to today's segment of Long-Lasting Literature. I'm Casey.
And I'm Abby.
And today we will be talking about Mark Twain and his time.
We're going to go to our first segment with Emma Rump, talking about the Civil War.
During the war, Southerners only wanted to read Southern writing by Southern authors. Poetry written in the South during the war was written with intense patriotism in support of the Confederates, and tributes to Southern war heroes were common and popular. In 1862, instant histories of the war began to be published and gained popularity, and after John Esten Cook's 1863 biography of the Confederate General Stonewall Jackson was published, Confederate heroes' lives became popular in the South. Literature in the South during the Civil War was pretty varied. The anti-slavery novel, Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, is quoted by Abraham Lincoln to have sparked the beginning of the Civil War. Slave narratives, such as the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass by Frederick Douglass, gained popularity before the war and remained popular during and after the war. However, some iconic slave narratives, such as 12 Years a Slave, didn't gain recognition until Stowe and Frederick Douglass, instant bestsellers, promoted it.
Thanks, Emma. So today I'm going to be talking about the Gilded Age. The Gilded Age was actually a term coined by Mark Twain himself along with Charles Dudley Warner, referring to the covering up of the suffering with the successfulness of others. After the Civil War, some novelists began responding to the dark and difficult realities of urbanization and modernization, opting to write in the style of realism, which soon turned into the Gilded Age of literature. American literature succeeded a new level during the Gilded Age. The dominant figure of the age was Mark Twain, who brought a stodgy New England writing style with a touch of realism. Twain developed his first book, along with Charles Dudley Warner, that satirized the selfishness and money-making schemes which directly correlated to this age.
Oh, I've heard about that. That's really interesting.
It is, isn't it? Along with that, other authors who succeeded during this age include Kate Chopin, Walt Whitman, and Stephen Crane. Chopin was largely unknown at the time, but her novel, The Awakening, became a manifesto for future feminists. Walt Whitman was most noted for his Leaves of Grass, and Stephen Crane portrayed the horrors of the Civil War in The Red Badge of Courage. Twain's most widely read novels include Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which we all know. The aim of some of these writers was to portray realistically the lives of various sections, and thus to promote understanding in a united nation. They did concern themselves with dialect and mores, and some at least avoided other sentimental or romantic formulas. They began examining social problems, depicting people from different classes and nationalities. During this age specifically, literature flourished. The concerns of society were satirized, and the style of writing was overall redefined.
Thank you, Abby. Now we will have Madison as today's international correspondent.
The Victorian era began in 1837, the year Victoria became queen, and ended in 1901 after her death. It lasted over 63 years because of Victoria's long reign, whose was longer than any other British monarch. The Victorian era was the great age of the English novel. Realistic, thickly plotted, crowded with characters, and long. The literature described contemporary life and entertained the middle class. Charles Dickens was one of the most popular authors. His works of literature were overflowing with drama, humor, endless variety of vivid characters, and plot complications, spare nothing in their portrayal of urban life for all classes. There was also a drive for social advancement that appeared frequently in literature. The drive took many forms. In Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, it was financial. It involved marrying above one's station, and Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. The drive for social advancement was also intellectual and education-based. The majority of the people in the Victorian era believed the attempt to improve social standing should be accompanied by proper behavior. The period saw a rise of an idealized notion of what is English, which tied closely to the English models of proper behavior. Charles Dickens definitely dominated the first part of the Victorian era. His first novel was Pickwick Papers, and his last was Our Mutual Friend. Another author was William Thackeray, whose most famous work was Vanity Fair. The three Bronte sisters, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne, also published significant works in the 1840s. Later on, in the Victorian era, George Eliot's work, Middlemarch, became popular. Thomas Hardy dominated the end of the Victorian era. His first novel came out in 1872, Under the Greenwood Tree, and his last, Jude the Obscure. Robert Browning and Alfred Tennyson were the most influential poets in England during the Victorian era. One aspect of literature that had world influence was Henry James' novel, A Portrait of a Lady, had meaning through social contrast and incorporated American versus European viewpoints.
Thank you, Madison. Now Casey will be discussing the gay 90s leading up to the start of World War I.
So during the gay 90s, there were two writers who had major effect on literature. They were Edith Wharton and Booth Tarkington. They wrote novels about the old money families since the time period was in economic depression. Soon after this, Mark Twain became an anti-imperialist because of his understanding of race, which became evident in Huckleberry Finn and Pudd'nhead Wilson. He dealt with the European and American imperialism at the end of the 19th century with the realization of white racism. I have read carefully the Treaty of Paris between the United States and Spain, and I have seen that we do not intend to free, but to subjugate the people of the Philippines. We have gone there to conquer, not to redeem, and so I am an anti-imperialist. I am opposed to having the eagle put its talons on any other land. That was an excerpt from New York Herald on October 15th, 1900, from Mark Twain himself.
I think I read that before.
Yeah, it's very insightful. So that excerpt had major effect on the Anti-Imperialist League, which lasted from 1898 to 1920. Mark Twain's work, To the Person Sitting in Darkness in a Defense of General Funston, portrayed Twain as a traitor for imperialism. The Anti-Imperialist League broke apart in 1904 and led to the First Imperialist War of 1914 to 1918, which is also known as World War I.
Thank you, Casey. That was very helpful.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you for watching our segment today. I hope you listened because there will be a Jeopardy game about our Mark Twain and his time.
Poetry written in... I'm sorry. I told you I cannot read my own handwriting. 1863 by 63.
1901, after her death. Okay, we have to get all our laughs out. Charles Dickens, one of the most popular authors.
Now I'm going to say my whole thing, and then what are we going to discuss?
Because you go... how should we do that?
I'm Abby. So today we're... Okay, wait. We didn't...
Okay, I'm just going to restart the back. Okay, because I need to
Segment of long-lasting liberty.
Liver. Okay, go. Casey.
This is your worst client.
Keep laughing.
We're all laughing. We're beginning.
I know, but you're in the corner like...
As soon as this battery quits, we're done because I don't have any and neither do you.
Okay. Hi. Hi, thank you for...
Buried. Yep, there it goes again. Because, I have
Long-lasting liberty.
He was allied with...
Take 56.
Okay. Today's international... I cannot say that. I have to write that down.